Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's Your Life. I'm your host, Dr. James JC Cooley. And guess what today is? Today is 360 degree health. And Dr. Mike, you done it again. You got another absolutely fantastic doctor that's going to come on and share what he is doing in order to tackle this major topic that I think the world is having right now. So real quickly, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, when I realized that July is the B.B. Moore Campbell National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, a time we can be focusing on the very unique strengths and challenges of people that are Black, Indigenous, people of color, and all minorities that when it comes to mental health, I said, we need someone who is an expert in this, someone who lives it, breathes it, and who brings it to the community. And that's exactly who we have today.
Yeah, and we do. And Michelle, what are your thoughts in about 15 seconds?
Mental health is it affects everybody. But there's also certain demographics of a huge population where mental health, let's say, help, it may not be that accessible compared to others. So I'm looking forward to the show, looking forward to what the guest has to educate the audience about.
Wow. Hey, Toddy, are you ready to do this, man?
Yes, let's lock in the station and let's rock and roll.
Let's lock in everything. I think we got 15 seconds. So
informed, engaged, and entertained with me, Dr. Wendy.
Don't miss Today with Dr. Wendy, Saturday nights at 6 on The Answer San Diego.
It's Your Life is sponsored by James JC Cooley.
Dr. James JC Cooley. The James Cooley Show.
Hello, welcome to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. It's your life. And that's what we're talking about today. We got my main man, Dr. Michael Mantell. And just like every Wednesday, and it's going to include another day as well coming real soon, 360 degree health. And this man always get the best doctors around the country and around the world to come on the show to share their ideas to help increase humanity, to help bring ideas on how to solve certain issues and concerns. And Dr. Mike, I'm just so happy to have you here.
It's a joy to be here every Wednesday with you. And it was great meeting you in person. My wife, Paula, and I met JC in person here. Michelle, you were busy vacationing, I think. No, I'm just kidding. I hope all is going well. We'll get together soon. But I know today, our guest and this program couldn't be more timely. We try to fit our guests into what's going on in the world. But July is the B.B. Moore Campbell National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's a time when people, Black, Indigenous, people of color, and as we said earlier, all minorities face mental health challenges, whether it's fear of judgment or cultural beliefs or generational differences or lack of access, which is a big one. We need to step up and do something. And that's who's on our show today to help us learn how to do that.
Michelle, how's your day going so far? I know I got up and when I did my 6-mile hike, and Doc, sometimes when you're doing a hike, you kind of get thirsty. I had to always have maybe some Powerade or something to help me, put all the minerals back in my body. So it's so important to make sure that you stay hydrated, but with that being said, Dr. Michelle Cooley, can you introduce the title of the show, the purpose of the show, and introduce this absolutely magnificent guest?
Oh, most definitely. So it's 360-degree Health Day, and the title is Black Men and Mental Health. So Dr. James Cooley and our co-host, Dr. Michael Mantell, will have a sit-down conversation with Dr. Obari Cartman. He's a community psychologist as well as an author. He's going to talk about cultural adaptations, using hip-hop to bridge access gaps, alternative approaches, everyday practices. Dr. Obari is a community psychologist who cultivates accessible wellness opportunities for Black men and boys. He specializes in integrating art, music, and culture into his healing practices. He is the author of the critically acclaimed book, Ladies' Man, Conversations for Young Black Men About Manhood and Relationships. His newest book will be released later this year, titled Black Spirituality, Ancient Wisdom for Everyday Life. Audience, please welcome to the show, Dr. Obari Cartman.
Hey, everybody. What's going on, y'all?
Good to have you here.
It's good to be here. Y'all got so much energy. I love y'all energy. Who can have a bad day around y'all? I just feel lifted just being on the call so far. So good to be here, man. Good to meet you.
How you doing, Doc, man?
I'm good, man. Life is good.
I am so interested in, you said, through hip-hop and other things. So I am so excited to have you on the show because as Dr. Mike mentioned that July is a cultivation month, and especially when it comes to mental health.
Yeah.
And so can you tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about you, where you grew up? I know we talked in the green room. What made you click and why you're so passionate about your job?
No, all day. So Obari Cartman, Chicago, born and raised, South Side boy, come from a family of really caring, committed people. So a lot of what I do is I contribute to both of my parents, who my dad was a chiropractor, my mother was an educator. And so I always had that in my heart, just that part of what my service, my obligation to my people was always cultivated in my community. So I went to school as a clinical and community PhD, but I always had to know that I had to come back home to contribute, to be in community. So that's what I do now. I'm here in Chicago. I do a lot of work in juvenile detention centers, high schools, community settings. It was very clear to me in my training that I didn't want to be the kind of psychologist that I was being trained to be. I didn't want to be in the university writing papers that nobody going to read. I didn't want to be sitting in the office waiting for people to come talk to me one at a time. I wanted to be out where the people were and doing wellness in a way that was accessible, that was relevant, that was fun. You can talk about depression and not be depressed, right? You can still having conversations about anxiety and not leave tighter. So I just wanted to find some ways to engage in this work that was true to who I am and also impactful to the people that I wanted to connect with. And I'm glad we're acknowledging Minority Mental Health Month. It's important. I do think that there are really critical ways that we need to think about wellness in particular for different groups. I went to school and read a bunch of sort of papers and, material around psychology. And the assumption is that it's generic, that it's just like for everybody. But the truth was a lot of it was tailored to and from a European white male perspective. So I read a bunch of Freud and Skinner's and Wundt and the behaviorists, all the people that I was reading were white men for a long time. And so all that in my head meant that when I go back to Chicago, to the South and West Side, that sometimes I'm doing work that had theoretical positions that was different from the people that I was working with. And you could not always make the assumption that because some people have figured out wellness in one way, that it applies to everybody. And so the minority mental health allows us to think about the specific types of trauma that people experience and the specific types of healing and intervention that they need. And we start by challenging the idea of minorities, right? We're talking minorities nationally for a little while, right? White people are not going to be the majority for long in this country, and certainly not in the world. Certainly not in the world. And the idea that we assign this label that has minor in it speaks to already a lesser of a value, and also just a skewed perspective on, the reality of the world. I was in Brazil last week, came back on Friday, and I got to physically experience what does it mean to be a part of a diaspora of Black people, of African descendants that are the majority of the people on the planet. We're talking Black, brown, indigenous people are the majority of the people on this planet. And so our stories, our perspectives, our value systems have to be central to how we think about wellness if we're going to do it right. And it can't just be the small, narrow, rigid view that we've all been trained in, because it's not necessarily wrong. It's just not everybody's take on this.
Well, Barry, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
And we're going to get personal. We're
Sure.
psychologists. We can be as personal as we can be. You grew up in a home where your dad was a doctor, a chiropractor.
Yeah.
Your mom was an educator, teacher. Yeah. I'm not sure what kind of school she taught in, but she was a professional. I don't know if you have siblings or not, but regardless, you grew up in South Side of Chicago, not necessarily the most ritzy area in the community, right? Mm-hmm. How do you talk to young people who say, yeah, well, look how you grew up. Your father was a doctor. Your mom was a teacher. Mm-hmm. I don't even have parents. What do you expect from me?
No, so that's great. It's a great point. One of the things that I'm really focused a lot on is the power of parenting. As a father, I got two boys, 12-year-old, 8-year-old, and that's my guiding light. Like, my motivation for all of this work is very personal, because I want to create a world where my sons are better, that their communities are safer. And so it's not professional for me. It's really a personal thing. And my experience of being a parent gets to help me see the power of parenting in a way that I get to talk about my personal story in, because my father was born in the projects. My mother was born very, very poor. And my father worked real hard to get us into a position where we were separate from a lot of the chaos and the danger that he grew up in, because he committed to making sure that his family had better opportunities. And so when I talk to young people now who are in that predicament, I get to think about and help them see what happens a generation away from that if you are committed to working and moving your people out and to creating the conditions. And that is my testimony, that if I had a different father who had a different worldview and worked a different kind of way, then I would not have had the advantages, the privileges, the benefits that my life had. And so I'm a byproduct of a father who made a commitment. And so when I'm talking to young men now, I say, you could do that too. Ain't nothing stop you from doing that. I don't care what your circumstance is. I don't care how you were born. I don't care what your life is, but you can absolutely get out of and recreate and find some other way to transform your conditions. And so I say, as a testimony in my personal life, I'm a byproduct of that. And I have an obligation to continue to evolve on that. Because that's the model that was set for me.
So you're saying, regardless of the background, we still have choice. If someone comes along and scratches my brand new car, I don't take my car and smash it into a wall. I do what I can do to fix it. And I have choice. And helping people see that they have choice, even though the world around them is telling them, you're nothing, you're minor, you're nothing, you still have to learn how to think about this differently.
Wow,
that's part of it. So think about it differently is part of it for sure. Yeah. So we don't.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Our head guy here is about to tell.
No. We're going to take a station break, but when we come back, I want to comment on what Dr. Mike and what you just said, because I'm a product of well, they told me I wasn't going to amount to You know, I grew up in the project, all that stuff, but determination and the hard work and perseverance, you can do anything. You can do anything you set your mind to. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a station break. Whether you're watching us on E360 television, Transfer TV, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, over 65 other live streaming platforms. All you have to do is go to the comments, ask any question you might have, or you can pick up the phone and dial 1-888-344-1170. My producer, Todd, will get you through. Remember, it's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
There's more stories of greatness to help you overcome adversity coming up on It's Your Life.
Really get a chance to know who you are. And once you know who you are, you truly know who you are, love who you are. Love who you are. You're a masterpiece. Love who you are. Love who you were born to be. Love me some me. That's what I'm talking about. When you leave high school, you gotta know today or tomorrow, hopefully today, what your plans are. Hopefully, there is no bad decision unless there is no plan. Create, collaborate, commit with confidence. Commit with what? Commit with what? And everything that you do.
From city life to country life and back again, sharing his hard-earned lessons to educate, encourage, and enlighten our next generation of leaders and heroes. Get your copy of Country Boy, City Boy, A Journey That Ain't Over Yet by James JC Cooley, available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold.
Listen up. It's Dr. JC Cooley. Yeah.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I tell you, my co-host, Dr. Mike Mantell. Just like I told you, you chose a winner, because what Dr. Obari is talking about is exactly what we need to hear. But we need to hear from not just from a minority perspective, because we all have to live together on this earth. So we have to find common grounds where all the races come in and make sure that we as people are valued, regardless of whether you're the majority or the minority. Now, Dr. OB mentioned something where the world is trending. The minority will be the majority around the world. And so we need to get rid of all of those things that separates us right now and learn to come together as people. So I tell you what, my viewers out there, my viewers and listeners, if you want to be part of this conversation, all you have to do is just go to the platform that you're watching us on, ask any questions that you might have. I promise you we'll get you an answer. Or you can pick up the phone and dial 1-888-344-1170. Radio station, KCBQ. We'll get you an answer. Hey, I want to pick up Dr. OB from what you said, because I'm a prodigy of the project.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a prodigy of a mother that had 10 kids, about 6 different fathers, and never was married.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always told that I was not going to amount to nothing.
Yeah.
Because of the situation and circumstances that I was in. But it ain't about me. The only thing I'm trying to say is your current situation is not your final destination.
For sure.
That means that whatever situation and circumstances that you might be in today, or as a kid, or all of those other things, as long as you have some faith in you, have some faith into a higher power, and understand that, it might be like this today, but give it a chance.
Yeah.
Those situations that I was in led me coming up poverty, gangs related, all that, project shooting, made me stronger, made me hungry. And my point is, I hope that the communities that we are serving, we have kids. I know we got kids that grew up like me.
Yeah, for sure.
But they need to understand they got purpose.
Yeah.
And I think some of the things that you are doing, I mean, you're very successful. You're a doctor, you're this and that. You don't have to focus on those things, but it's part of your DNA. It's part of my DNA. It's part of Dr. Mike's DNA. We have to focus on the betterment of our future leaders of tomorrow, mankind. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree completely. The future is really dependent upon those of us right now creating those links between young people, helping them see purpose and possibility. I think we have to be careful to encourage, as we are, the truth, which I agree completely with, that the circumstances do not determine their destiny, that there's a lot of grit and character and discipline that can transform their lives to possibilities. And at the exact same time, we also have to contribute to conversations about and work around equity, around fairness, around changing the conditions that young people are in so that they have a wider range of choices to choose from. We're resilient, right? We're tough. We can make it through, and we don't always have to. And I think there's ways that we can create societies and collaborations and partnerships where certain children don't have to work harder than other children. Depending on what zip code you're in should not determine how much food you get, how much access to healthcare you get, what your life expectancy is. And so there's fairness also, that the mental health world is not really good at connecting to. And we focus a lot on individual functioning and personal sort of like achievement, but we also need to think about the larger context and get involved in policy work, get involved in some of the systems change work, become advocates for redistribution of wealth, and try to find ways to think about mental health in a collective way, because it is possible, but not always fair to expect children to work as hard as they have to when other children have much easier routes towards the success that we all deserve. So both are true. I think we also need to keep
when I was in, I think it was 8th grade, met with my 8th grade teacher, my parents, going into high school, and she said, "Mrs. Mantell, Michael, me, is not college material. I am not college material." My mother had 2 words for her, which I don't want to repeat on the air. you know what they are.
Yeah.
And she pulled me out there, and she said, "Don't listen to her. She doesn't know what she's talking about." My mother grew up in the projects in Newark. I visited my grandparents there every week. I understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So when I got my PhD at the University of Pennsylvania, my mother pulled me out of the graduation. I said, "It's not over. Where are we going?" "We're going to go to the cemetery." "Cemetery?" She said, "Yeah, we're going to go visit Mrs. So-and-so, your 8th grade teacher." I don't want to mention her name. And we're going to take that diploma and shove it down her. My point being this: yes, we want fairness. We want everyone to have equal. It's not the way it is, and we don't succumb to that. Well, since I don't have this, therefore I give up. JC is saying it. You're saying it. All of our friends say it. I don't care what I have or don't have. It's irrelevant. And you're the example in the community. I want to hear more about some of the primary mental health challenges that you see people facing. I think a big one, and I know that Dr. Michelle talked about this at the beginning, is accessibility to mental health services.
For sure.
I have a young man who needs medication. He has bipolar disorder. Called to make an appointment. Sorry, we can't see you for 7 weeks. 7 weeks? Do you know what that's like?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you talk about that a little bit in the community that you serve?
No, I mean, I think that we've done a really good work in reducing some of the stigmas, which means we have more people seeking services right now, and we have a shortage of providers. There's a bottleneck of the relationship between the need and the opportunities. And so those stories are very common in every city I go to. I meet people asking me for referrals. And I used to call my friends and say, can you guys spaces? And can you please take this one more? And because we getting burned out as the providers, it means that the people are kind of out here just like trying to figure it out on their own. And so access is a huge problem. One of the ways we're trying to deal with that is expand our notions of what a service provider looks like, and leaning on peer support, leaning on lived experiences, creating sort of group support systems that don't require like a professional licensed counselor all the time, but just to create spaces where people can come together and support each other. Peace circles and restorative circles, those kind of things are more accessible sometimes. But we also need to change the systems to make sure that everybody has access. We also need, and that's part of what we talk about around policy, around advocacy. It's not just the therapeutic individual work, but also thinking about how do we create more pipelines for more professionals to come into? How do we encourage young people to enter these fields? And how do we also make sure that they're culturally relevant when people do come into the office? Because sometimes people do finally make it through the waiting list and then are met with resistance or don't feel seen and heard or feel like they're misdiagnosed. And then they have a negative experience and then don't come back or discourage other people from coming back because of the racism in the healthcare complexes. So there's a bunch of different layers of issues that we are working on right now.
A number of years ago, there was a lot of talk about how people want to see a therapist or a doctor from their own background. They feel comfortable if it's their own. What about that? Is that an issue today? And I want you to, we don't have a lot of time left. We have 1 minute left, but I want to get into stigma, particularly in the Black community, for seeking mental health services.
Yeah. There's definitely, I think, more preference still for seeing someone of your same background and complexion and experience. I think that helps with the idea of the stigma that someone would feel like they were judged by someone that doesn't really understand where they're coming from. But I also think that people are more open to that and can get a lot out of having to tell their story to someone that is different from them, because it forces you to have to articulate and have to really cross bridges. And there can be a lot of therapeutic sort of benefit to that by itself. So I encourage people to get help where you can, and that it doesn't take the same person to help you, particularly now when there's a lack of access.
Wow. This is such an incredible conversation that we're having right here, and it needs to be heard. And Dr. OB, I can tell, man, you don't need the research, you're doing it, you're living it, it's in your heart, you bleed it. So we're going to take a station break, but we're going to come back. We're going to pick up from here. And Dr. Ballinger got a question for you as soon as we get back. But I tell you what, whichever platform that you all are watching this on, all you have to do is just go to the platform, go to the comments, ask any question that you might have. I promise you we'll get you an answer. Or you can pick up the phone and dial 1-888-344-1170. Let me tell you one more time. That's 1-888-344-1170. Remember, it's your life. And we'll see you shortly after this.
There's more stories of greatness to help you overcome adversity.
Doctor James JC Cooley Show. It's your life.
Hello, I'm Dr. James JC Cooley from the United States of America, and I am here to just say, first of all, I'm so happy and honored to be honored to be in the Coffee Book 2023, Unified Brain Z, and the other organizations. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this collection.
Dr. James JC Cooley. The James Cooley Show. It's your life. Cooley Show. It's your life. That's right. The James Cooley Show. It's your life. That's right.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show.
Cooley Show.
It is your life, and that's what we're doing. It's your life. Welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life. And I tell you what, Dr. Mike, this guest right here is absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I hope you guys can hear me. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, but you're frozen.
Yeah. That means I'm gonna have to step out for a second.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna continue on with some questions for Obari. Okay.
Okay. I'll see you guys in a minute.
Okay. So, Dr. Cartman.
Yes, sir.
I have a feeling I know the answer to this question. I could be wrong. Heads or tails, I don't know. But DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of the highly esteemed American Psychiatric Association. What do you think about this? Does it apply? Does it relate to people who are in minority groups?
I would say more no than yes.
I had a feeling that's what you were going to say.
I would say it's a useful toolkit. It's something that is a part of structures that we have to rely on. If you're doing insurance, if it's helpful for collecting data, but it is normed. The research is done on not minority, if you will, populations. And so the utility is, questionable.
I would add that it's a lot of question about whether it even applies to the quote majority. Never use the term minority again without thinking about what you said in terms of minor and major. I've never thought of it like that. But we know that the diagnostic manual was not normed on people of minority backgrounds. It's called into question a lot. But I'm curious, what specific mental health disorders do seem to affect Black men and women more or less than other demographics?
I'm seeing a lot of addiction. I'm seeing a lot. We've started to identify more suicide completions as a problem. And I think that if we're talking about those diagnoses, I think that there are a lot of high functioning anxiety and depression that we overlook because people are just so used to being resilient and carrying it and stuffing it and are intelligent and brilliant and strong enough to make it through and still be parents and still go to work, but still have inside of them an emptiness that they supplement with all kinds of other things that sometimes turn into problems like substance use. But I think there's a lot of undiagnosed things that we are concerned about. One of the things that, particularly with men, that I hear more often than not is that everybody thinks I'm fine, right? That, I look good. I got the suit and the tie on. I'm driving a nice car. I'm married. I'm going to work. Everything on the outside is fine, but on the inside, right, I'm just really just crumbling. So I think that because of that, the people aren't seeking services and have a lot of undiagnosed sort of trauma, as Dr. Balance pointed to, and all kind of things that we've experienced that we've normalized, that we think that this is what we're supposed to be. We violent and abusive, and we think that that's what life is, and it's not.
No. So are there very unique or particularly effective strategies and interventions that you're bringing to the minority community to help improve emotional distress and mental disorder?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the analysis is, and Dr. JC mentions it when he talks about the book, that part of our trauma has included the hundreds of years of oppression, of trauma, of sort of deep psychological, right, abuse.
400 years plus.
Right, 400 years plus, right? That's a long time for people to be under somebody else's foot. And the mechanism for that included removing those elements of our culture that were medicinal, that were power, the spirituality, the rituals, the drums, the dance, the family connections. Those things were the things that held us together. And if someone is trying to break people apart, then they have to attack those cultural practices. And part of my therapy, part of my approach to wellness has to say, if that was how we got hurt, then to fix it has to put those things back together. And so I have drum circles. We do comedic yoga, where we're talking about sort of ancient, sort of comedic civilizations and the things that we contributed to on the world stage. Hip hop, we've mentioned. I use a lot with young people where we're printing out lyrics. We're talking about themes. There's a lot of artists that have been very transparent in their art, talking about, grief and loss and, some of the things that they're experiencing from poverty. So we get to use them to normalize the vulnerability that happens. The problem in hip hop often is that the artists are saying life is tough and I lost my homies and everything is rough. And they only sort of provide popping pills or sex or some other thing as a solution to that. So I get to use the awareness of the pain, the normalization of being transparent, and now say, well, what else can we do to help remedy that does not cause new problems that the artists are pointing you towards, if they're promoting something that's hurting you, but what are some other options? So we go back to the breathing exercises. We go back to some of the mindfulness exercises and the integrating of mental, physical, spiritual activities that have always been that thing that held us together that we got to get back to. And, none of the stuff is stuff I learned in school. Like this wasn't the licensing process does not require me to think about cultural rootedness in a way that has been the most impactful work that we're doing here in Chicago.
No matter how you do it, it always comes back to, we got to learn how to think differently about our experiences. I'm curious about this. In particular, you talk about culture, bringing culture into it and music and so forth. What about faith? JC talked about this earlier. Talk about the role that faith plays in healing emotional disorders.
That's a really important one. I'm finding a lot of this generation of young people having a lot of disdain for the church specifically, and the church is an institution that has really gotten Black folk real far for a long time. And we're acknowledging some of the, rigidity that I think people experienced in the church. People are calling it church hurt specifically, talking about the ways that it wasn't inclusive and people with different gender identities and different sort of sexual orientations did not feel welcome, and that there was a judgmental aspect of it that made young people feel like they did not belong there. And so the problem with that is I meet a lot of young people who are dealing with grief and loss and don't have a framework to understand that, don't have a place to put some sense that there's something bigger than my personal experience to relieve the burdens that I'm carrying. So I'll say faith is something that I lean on, but I couch it in the more of spirituality that does not have some of the rigidity that they experience religion with, which means that, I'm open to whatever makes you feel connected to something larger than yourself. It might be being around nature. It might be something, an indigenous practice. It might be something that is a combination of things that you draw upon from different faiths. I'm a big believer in the commonality of the interfaith ideas. So if you go to many of the books, you'll see the themes that are very similar. Be good to each other, be kind, have reverence, be obedient to something that's bigger than you. And so I think that we can combine those spiritual ideas and give young people something to be motivated by that does not have some of the same baggage that I think they experience from the church
Hey,
specifically.
Doc, hold that thought. We got to take a station break, but
You got it.
you're on point in everything that you're doing right now. Wow, and everything you're saying. I want to come back and I'm going to entertain the hip hop a little bit more on how you are reaching a lot of the folks that you're reaching in communities, because that's important. But I also want to bring it into perspective where we have to reach out to everybody in some type of way. Love, not hate, togetherness. I tell you what, whichever platform that you're watching something, you want to be part of the conversation. All you have to do is just put the question, ask any questions you might have. I promise you will get you an answer. Or you pick up the phone, call my producers at KCBQ AM 1170, the answer AM FM 96.1. Talk to Todd and say, hey, put me through. It's your life, and we'll see you shortly after the break.
There's more stories of greatness to help you overcome adversity. Coming up on It's Your Life with James Cooley.
JC Cooley.
Number one, don't stop till the job is done. You know it starts with a try. Gotta win, gotta spread your wings, gotta fly. Lift up your head, don't stop till it's down with the bed. No matter how hard it seems, gotta keep on pressing, gotta keep that dream. Be the best you can be. Don't get your victory. Throw your hands up in the sky, gotta be number one when you win, and you will see that there's a story, man. Now follow the plan. Gotta raise up, be a leader, make a change. It's time for you now. Take a stand.
And everywhere books are sold.
JC Cooley.
Hello, welcome back to the James Cooley Show. It's your life, and I tell you what, everybody's the winner. Charles Van and I wrote those songs, The Four C's and Winner, and right now, we wrote those 5 years ago. We just now pushing it out there because a winner, victory. 4 C's: create, collaborate, commit with confidence in everything that you do. And that's what the world needs now. And we need great doctors, great folks, especially like these two doctors that we got on right now. And Dr. OB, I'm telling you, I am totally, thoroughly impressed. And you know, I mean, you're bringing it, brother. You're bringing it.
I appreciate you, brother.
And it need to be here. And Dr. Mike, he's just a wealth of knowledge. I look forward to having him on this show every single Wednesday. But we're going to increase that a little bit if he have the time, because I learned so much from him. But my thing is this: culturally, and how the world is today, we have to figure out a way to bridge the gap where everybody know they got purpose. We cannot be in a mindset where if black, white, green, purple, gold, you feel that you're more superior to somebody else because of money or what status or whatever that might be. Hey, Todd, I want to get your thoughts real quickly on this before I get back to the show. What are your thoughts on the show so far?
No, it's a really good show, and we only have 9 minutes left, so let's get right back to the experts.
Okay.
Wow, 9 minutes left.
I turn it back over to you, Dr. Mike.
Well, I just wrote something on a side note here. We were talking about cultural identity, hip hop, and so forth, and we know there's hip hop and there's hip hop. There's good pop and bad pop, and some of the messages are not very good, and some of them are beautiful. But ultimately, research seems to suggest that Black Americans who have a very strong, positive sense of their racial and cultural identity, through all the things that you just brilliantly talked about. You take all these things from the culture and you show how that can create better psychological well-being. When you have a positive sense of self, despite receiving all the negative messages, you're a minor, all the rest of that stuff, boy, that really helps build. The eroding of cultural identity, maybe eroding very important coping strategies like resilience. What thoughts do you have about that?
I think that's the center of it. I think that is the center of what wellness needs to be for Black and people of color. That it can't just be the same generic coping and managing within a sick system to get people to get back to work and just be more effective cogs in the wheel. If we're going to do what Dr. JC is suggesting, which is to collaborate, to build bridges, to have true diversity, if you imagine like pieces of a puzzle coming together, those pieces have to be whole first before they can come to join collaboratively in any effective way. And the African-American piece has been distorted and commodified and broken. And we have to do that work within ourselves to restore the cultural identity. Because you talk to a lot of Black folk today, you ask them, what does it mean to be Black? They'll say something negative. It'll be something disparaging. Young people might have sort of this view of Blackness as trauma or descendants of slaves only, that we only just like lucky we're not slaves no more. Or they might see the traumatic conditions that they're in and think Black must mean violence and drugs and sex and the stuff that the bad corporate hip hop presents. Or we might think that, you know, a lot of young people I'm talking to are even disconnected from the jazz culture or hip hop in its purest form, or the things that Black people have created in this country that we can be proud of. So that cultural pride allows you to stand up straight, allows you to move through the world, to have a sense of value and worth that then allows you to seek services when you're down, to decide that you deserve to do the work that we're asking them to do, which is to be disciplined and to transform your communities. But if you don't think that you're worth it, then nothing else will happen. If you don't believe that you deserve good things, then you will unravel every opportunity that comes to you. And that starts with your thinking and your worldview, your identity, your sense of place in the world. And there's been work done against Black folk to make us think that we have not contributed valuably to this place. And part of the therapy has to include just telling the truth about who we are, what we've done, what happened to us, but also the rich resource that we are and that we're connected to ancestrally, so that it's not just a badge of shame, but becomes a sense of purpose and pride.
Sense of purpose and pride is so important because that requires a refocusing of the mind, in my opinion. And that requires being able to forgive what had happened before in order to move forward to make things better. That requires being open-minded and understanding that we all are a child of the Most High God, in my case, or whoever you worship. So all of those things are important. Dr. Bellin got a question for you.
Let me respond real quick to that. I love the forgiveness part. I love it. Much easier to forgive when repair is done. Right. Also much easier to forgive if it stopped happening.
Right.
Be in a moment of it's still happening. If y'all watch what's going on with the Supreme Court, I mean, the democracy is eroding in front of our eyes, and Black people of color are going to suffer more than anybody else. So it's hard to forgive when it's present. And I think
Well, let me say something. It's more than, I mean, I'm just going to say this. It's more than just Black. It's more than just, it's the Jews. It's everybody. And in my opinion, just my opinion, yes, the Supreme Court is putting their thumb on everything, in my opinion, about going back to Western civilization. But that's just my opinion only. How it used to be. The world is evolving. And we have to come into where we are at. And we have to be able, as people, I'm talking about Black, white, green, gold, purple, Indian, Jews, everybody, white people, everybody had to live together, in my opinion. And that's coming across a common solution. But you're absolutely right. I write in my book 1619. I'm 1619.
Yeah.
It was a different world for us in the motherland. We were plucked from the motherland to come to all of these different countries from what we wasn't familiar with, and try to teach and change our mindset, and where we became slaves. I don't want us to go back to a situation. I mean, but I ain't got nothing to show on it. Go back to where you look down at a person just because they're not the same color you are, your same race or religion, all of that stuff. It's and the world is globally 3/4 of the world is indigenous, Black, brown, or whatever. That's the whole world.
Right.
And but it doesn't. And not politically, I'm not talking politically, but we have to teach our youth and young adults to push away from that and to be open-minded, learn to love. Don't see religion, don't see color, don't see this. I know I'm taking up too much of the time because we only got 2.5 minutes left. But Doc, you got something to say.
You remember when Dr. Robin Tiger said, I've seen 5,000 x-rays of people, and when I look at those x-rays, I don't know what color they are. I just see inside. Because I have a saying, I told it to Oprah. I said, look beyond the outside to that which lies within. Look at what someone can become, not what they've been. I remember when my Rabbi Joachim Prince, walked arm in arm with Martin Luther King in Washington. I thought, maybe there's a chance. Two people, both of whom come from slave backgrounds, Egyptians and all kinds of other people, thousands of years, we somehow thrive through it. And I think that with the work you're doing, Obari, is just amazing. We need to highlight it more. You're bringing it in every corner of your community, from barbershops to card games to wherever else you can do it. And it doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. We're down to the last minute of the show. Obari, I love your style, man. How can people get in touch with you if they want? I mean, real quickly, 20 seconds or less. How can they get in touch with you and list your services or just talk to you?
I got a website, drobaricartman.com, but I'm on Instagram too at ocartman1.
Wow.
You can spell my name. You can find me.
Hey, I want to thank you so much.
Thank y'all, man.
Absolute pleasure for coming on the show today. Of course, I got to thank my main man, Dr. Michael Mantell.
Yes, sir.
I would like to thank Todd, my producer back in my California studios. Most importantly, I want to thank Dr. JC Cooley for putting together another great show. But most importantly, I'd like to thank our viewers, our listeners, for tuning into the James Cooley Show. It's your life, Monday through Friday. Oh, well, Sunday to Sunday, actually. 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. But I tell you what, always dream big, think big, and be big at everything you do. We'll see you tomorrow.
Cooley Show.
GM Renovations reminds listeners as our troops come home,